Welcome to SJ's classes. This video lesson, we will be discussing Dr. Samuel Johnson's first literary critic that we have to confront as part of this module is William, first of which is known as Partial Tradition and the other as the Manipravalam tradition. Short introduction to the English novelist, journalist, essayist and critic to the two of the most popular Greek critics, Plato and Aristotle. He is considered as the representative of the Greek era in Malayalam. Famous novella. That is a folklore mythological story that is being referred to here. Hello everyone, welcome to SJ's classes. It's a tough time for all of us. We are literally struggling to survive the second stage of coronavirus spread. Make sure that you stay safe and healthy during this period. Let's also make sure that we don't put an end to our studies. Let's continue learning so that once we survive this global pandemic, we will not be at a complete loss. This video lesson will introduce you to the Norwegian playwright Henrik Ibsen and his masterpiece A Doll's House. Let me introduce you to the playwright. Henrik Ibsen was a Norwegian playwright of the late 19th century. He was born on March 20, 1828 at Skien, which is a small town of southern Norway. He is regarded as one of the most influential playwrights of his time and as one of the founders of modernism in theatre. Ibsen therefore is often referred to as the father of realism. A few words on realism. Realism is an approach that attempts to describe life truthfully without idealization or romantic subjectivity. So you take away few aspects from the stage, aspects like idealization or romantic subjectivity, imagination. Literary realism is a manner and method of picturing life as it really is, untouched by myth, mystery, spiritualism, idealism, or romanticism. A realist drama presents the subject matter truthfully, without artificiality, and avoiding artistic conventions and strange supernatural elements. So that was an introduction to realism as well for those of you who are not aware of this particular literary term. So Ibsen is often referred to as the father of realism. He dealt with many such realistic elements through his plays. The subjects addressed by Ibsen in his realistic social plays include infidelity, sexual transmission of hereditary diseases, euthanasia, women's status in the society as well as inside a family, hypocrisy, deceit or deception, boredom, falsehood, war and business, etc. Earlier, the European stage was described as a plaything and distraction for the bored, but Ibsen completely rewrote the rules of drama with a realism that we still see in theatres today. Without fairy tale figures and unlikely plots, Ibsen brought his audience into regular people's homes. That's why most of his plays are regarded as realistic plays. That's why he is regarded as the father of realism. In 1849, he wrote his first play, Catalina, a drama written in verse, modeled after one of his greatest influences, William Shakespeare. In 1851, he got a job at the National Theatre of Bergen. The Burial Mound, which came out in 1850, was his first drama to be staged and it attracted only a few audience. In the following years, he wrote numerous plays that went unsuccessful, but his determination to be a playwright stayed strong. Ibsen's family faced very hard financial crisis during this period. Disappointed from life in Norway, Ibsen went to Italy in 1864 and didn't return to Norway, his hometown, for 27 years. Then, in this self-imposed exile, he wrote a drama titled Brand, which was written in 1865 and first performed in Stockholm, Sweden on 24th March 1867. This drama is a five-act tragedy about a clergyman whose feverish devotion to his faith cost him his family and ultimately his life in 1865. This play was written in 1865, which gave him a breakthrough and financial success he was seeking for as a playwright. So it's the play Brand written in 1865 that gave him a break, a financial as well a financial success, which he sought after as a playwright. In 1868, Ibsen moved to Germany, where he wrote one of his most famous works, the play A Doll's House, which is a tragic play that deals with the wretched status of subservient women in society and their quest for self identity and emancipation. Let me also point out some of the other important plays of this playwright. They are Hedda Gabler, Peer Gynt, An Enemy of the People, Emperor and Galilean, Ghost, The Wild Duck, When We Dead Awaken, and The Master Builder. He has influenced a host of later writers like James Joyce, George Bernard Shaw, Oscar Wilde, and Eugene O'Neill. On May 23, 1906, he passed away. So that's an introduction to the playwright. Now let me introduce the play to you. The play is titled A Doll's House. It's a play that received worldwide publicity and greater fame than any other play of Ibsen. It is a problem play like most of his other plays. Problem play in the sense it represents a real problem of society to the audience and to the reader. That's what a problem play is after all. The problem Ibsen has presented in the drama is the position of woman in relation to her husband and her home. And also, and women at that time in Norway, they lacked reasonable opportunities for self-fulfillment as it was a male-dominated world. So that's a kind of problem that Ibsen has presented through this play. It's a three-act play. It was published on December 4, 1879, and it premiered at the Royal Theatre in Copenhagen, Denmark on 21st December 1879. So it was staged at the same year when it was published. The play centers on an ordinary family, and the characters that we see in this play are Toward Helmer, a bank lawyer, his wife Nora, and their three children. The play was so controversial that Ibsen was forced to write a second ending that he called a barbaric outrage to be used only when necessary. So, see, he had to rewrite the ending because the ending of the play was controversial. And the controversy centered around Nora's decision to abandon her children. And in the second ending, which he rewrote later on, Nora decides that the children need her more than she needs her freedom. So she stays back. That's the second ending that Ibsen gave to the play. Now let's look at the characters in the play. We have Nora, who is the protagonist of the play, and she is the wife of Torvald Helmer. Torvald Helmer, he is a manager. He has been recently appointed as a manager of a bank. We have Krogstad, who is a barrister or a lawyer who went to school with Torvald and holds a subordinate position at Torvald's bank. We also have Mrs. Lind, who is Nora's childhood friend. We have other characters like Dr. Rang, who is Torvald's best friend and their family doctor. We have Nora's and Torvald's three small children, Bob, Emmy, and Ivar. And also Anne Mary, who is the Helmer's nanny, the nanny who takes care of the Helmer's children. Now let's look at. I won't be reading the play in detail in this video lesson, but rather I would give you a summary of all the important events that happen in the three acts of this play. So let's look at some of the important events in Act One. Now the play opens with the protagonist Nora entering her home along with a number of gifts as it's Christmas Eve. Her husband Torvald Helmer, who, as I said earlier, is now a manager at a bank, and he's reading a book as the as this particular event happens, and he chides Nora for spending lavishly on these things, as last year they were out of money because she spent too much. However, as Helmer is about to get a promotion, Nora doesn't find anything wrong with spending money. So he will be promoted, or he has been promoted as a manager of a bank, and therefore Nora doesn't find anything wrong with spending money lavishly. The maid comes and announces that Mrs. Lind, who is at present a widow and who has been going to school with Nora during their childhood, and Dr. Rang, a rich family friend who is secretly in love with Nora, have come. So the maid announces that both Mrs. Lind and Dr. Rang have come. While Helmer goes away, Nora attends to Mrs. Lind, and both the ladies start telling about their lives to each other. Lind tells about her unhappy life. She tells Nora that her husband died without leaving good fortune or children for her. She further tells Nora that her mother got ill and she had to take care of her brothers as well. And this is why she appears to be older than Nora, who seems to be quite young and innocent. Nora says that her life was equally difficult since one last year they had a very hard time, as her husband got ill and she had to take him to Italy for his recovery. The expenses of treatment were quite high, and she had to borrow money from someone by forging her father's signatures without telling him and even her husband. And since then, she is secretly saving to pay off her debt. Also, Helmer became a bank manager, and thus their economic conditions got better. Linda tells Nora that she came in search of a job. Nora assures to help her. Krogstad, who is an employee at Torvald's bank, appears and goes straight to Torvald Helmer. His appearance makes Nora uneasy. As of now, we don't understand why this happens, but his presence at their house make Nora a bit uneasy. A little later, Helmer comes out, and when Nora tells him about Mrs. Lind, he at once agrees to give her a job at the bank. Olive and Nora remain alone. Just then, Krogstad comes and tells Nora that her husband is about to fire him from the job and asks her to pursue her husband to let him retain his job, or else he will disclose her crime, which is forgery that I spoke about earlier, to him. So Krogstad knows about this little secret of Nora. And Krogstad says that if you do not pursue her husband to let him retain his job, he will disclose his secret to him. Saying this, Krogstad leaves. When Helmer returns back, Nora pleads him not to fire Krogstad from his job, but Helmer tells about his hypocrisy and lies and remains unmoved to his decision. So these are the important events that you come across in Act 1. Now let's read Act 2, or rather, understand the important events in Act 2. The next day, Nora, being quite worried, again pleads to her husband not to uh, dismiss Krogstad, adding that he will defame him, but she fails to convince Helmer. Dr. Rank comes, and as Nora is about to ask for some financial help, he confesses his love for her as he is about to die of tuberculosis. Nora is stunned. She is shocked to learn about this love that he has for her. She gives up the idea of asking for money from him. A little later, Krogstad comes. Nora asks Dr. Rank to go to Helmer's study room. Nora tells Krogstad that she tried her best to persuade her husband, but he did not change his mind. At this, Krogstad says that he will write a letter to Helmer telling about the forgery. Nora begs him not to do so, but he puts the letter in Helmer's mailbox. Nora tells Lind about the critical situation. Lind reveals that she was in love with Krogstad before her marriage, and even today they love each other. She assures to help Nora by persuading Krogstad. Now, Nora is someone who was ready to help Lind, and Lind, at this particular point, says that she was in love with Krogstad earlier, and they are currently, in a relationship. So, she would, think about helping, or she would rather help Nora. When Helmer tries to open his mailbox, Nora uses her charms to prevent him from opening it, saying that he should keep businesses aside till the next night party. Helma agrees. Nora feels guilty and even thinks of committing suicide to save her husband from the shame of the revelation of her crime. So, as of now, Torvald hasn't read the letter written by Krogstad. As of now, Nora is safe. Let's see what happens in Act 3. The next night, Lind and Krogstad meet. Lind tells him that she had to marry a rich man who could support her and her family. She also tells that she is a widow now and also free from family obligation. She expresses her desire to live with him. Krogstad is quite pleased with that. He decides to take back his letter, but Lind says that Helmer should know the truth for the sake of marriage. Nora and Helmer return back. Dr. Rang, who secretly followed them, finding Nora alone, bids final goodbye as his death is near. He was infected, or he was a tuberculosis patient, and he was about to die, and he bids his final adieu to the couple. Helmer reads Krogstad's letter and is quite outraged over his wife's forgery. He abuses Nora and is overjoyed to learn that. Sorry, uh, uh, just then the maid comes with another letter from Krogstad. Helmer reads the letter and he is overjoyed to learn that Krogstad has had a change of heart and has returned the bond which he made along with Nora. He at once forgives his wife. However, Nora realizes that her husband never loved her and she was just a doll whom he played with. And then she makes this decision. She decides to end up living in Helmer's house, and in spite of his pleas, repeated requests, she goes out, slamming the door behind her. She attains her freedom. She liberates herself from this particular household or family, and this is what became a controversy. A mother leaving her children. That's why Ibsen rewrote the ending of the play, and he had said that this ending or this particular ending that he rewrote must be used only when necessary. Now, if you ask me what are the themes that this particular play discusses, one of the most important play that it discusses is the status of women in society with respect to her husband as well as her family. And some of the other themes that this play discusses are the sacrificial role of women. Now you find that in order to support her mother and two brothers, Miss Lind found it necessary to abandon Krogstad and marry someone else. The nanny who is there in this play, even she had to abandon her own child to support herself, support her family by working as a maid for Nora's family. And even Nora, she makes a sacrifice by abandoning her children at the end. And some of the other themes that you see in this play are love and marriage, gender, money and work, individual versus society, deception, materialism, parental obligations, corruption, etc. So I hope you have an idea regarding the play as well as the playwright. Thank you so much for being with me. I will see you in another video lesson. Thank you.